Hi everyone. Welcome back to Dreams of Zion and the Potsmoker's Bible. My name is Zion. I'm the author of the Potsmoker's Bible, which contains the prophetic book of Zion, where I get my name and authority. It comes from the Ketuvim, or Old Testament of the Hebrew Bible. I use the Christian King James version of the Bible to put together the prophecy of Israel from the scattered testimony of the various prophets of the Old Testament. And I wrote the Book of Zion, a book written entirely in Bible verse. Then I had to write the Potsmoker's Bible in order to publish the Book of Zion. And in order to show you how wonderful a dream Zion is, I've decided to tell you some stories about people who can benefit from Zion and how Zion will take care of them, and thus you. Today's story is episode 5. And I'm calling this one Harry Comes Home. And as you know, these are off the top of my head stories that I'm making up as I go on, so bear with me. It's not publishable. It's just a little story. In my mind, Harry is a Vietnam vet, an older gentleman, a homeless man. He is living on the streets of Chicago, and it's been like 20 years since he had anything to do with his family, because he had been suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome from the experience that got him a Purple Heart. And he became violent and withdrawn, and eventually he just wound up on the streets. So one day, in the very near future, he is sitting underneath a bridge with all of his worldly possessions sitting all around him. And he's sleeping in a box, as so many people are. Harry is lost mentally. His brain has pretty much fractured, and it has been years since he really spoke to anyone. He is truly lost in his own misery. And I cry for every Harry out there and every Jane. And so he's sitting in front of his box, and he looks up and he dimly registers that there's this person talking to him. And he really doesn't know what's happening because he's this lost in his mental state. Well, this couple who are on their way to Zion are doing exactly what Zion has told them to do. They're stopping and they're picking up the homeless on the way, and they're bringing them to camp so that they can be cared for. And so in his lost and lonely state, he's barely even aware that he's in a car and that he's being driven to the gates of Zion. And their car gets there, and there's a cyanide at the gate, and they see him. Obviously homeless, obviously lost mentally. And he looks at the driver and the passenger of the car, and he says, "Thank you so much for bringing him. What's his name?" "Well, we don't know. He hasn't spoken a word since we picked him up. He barely even ate." So anyway, the gentleman hits a button on his phone. The cyanide does. And they say, "Please." And it's like he goes around side where Harry is sitting. He opens the car door and gently takes Harry out of the back of the car. Another couple, another Zionite comes and takes care of the car people, the people in the car, who receive an accommodation in Zion for bringing him. And very shortly, a woman comes up to him and takes him by the hand. Her name is Stormy, and she is the leader of the homeless in Zion. That's her responsibility, is to take care of Harry and everybody like Harry. She happens to be a really good friend of mine. She's as misunderstood as they are and perfect to take care of them. I mean, she was made for it. And so Stormy gently takes him, puts him in a golf cart, and away they go to the compound that is set aside for the homeless. And there, he is gently led by her to what's called a healing circle. This healing circle is made up of empaths, and their job is to reach him in his shattered state and to bring him home. And so they set him in this circle. They don't touch him. They don't worry about how he looks or smells. All they can see is his fractured soul. And so they close their eyes. And they reach out with their feelings and emotions. They send him such a wave of love and healing and light that it penetrates the fog of war that he has been lost in all of these years. And for the first time, he hears Stormy's voice. Oh, come back to us. We want to help you. My name is Stormy, and I'm going to make sure that you're never hurt again. What's your name? And through the fog of his misery, he looks up and he sees her. And she is a little bit younger than he is. Obviously in her 40s or 50s. And her smile is so kind that he says, Harry. My name is Harry. And slowly, with the love of the healers, the empaths, and with Stormy's guidance, he tells his story. And one of the clerks that is in charge, that is operating within this healing guild, they have a genetic base set up. And so when they examine him, when the physicians examine him, they take a blood sample and get his DNA, and they match him up with a couple that have recently joined the camp. His granddaughter and her family. And so by the time he's showered and cleaned up, and for the first time in 20 years feeling like a human being, he hears his name, and he looks up, and here is a woman that is the exact image of his daughter. And in that moment, Harry comes home. His soul comes back to his body, and he's engulfed in arms of his loved ones. And the terrible, terrible burden that he's had to bear for all these years is finally not so overbearing because he's not alone. And so his granddaughter takes him to her camp and instills him in his family unit where he belongs. The very next day, Stormy comes to get him and says, "Hey, Harry, it's time to go heal. We're going to go introduce you to some people who are going to help you deal with whatever it is that made you leave home and that what put you in that state." And through a series of sessions called Scream Therapy, Harry is led towards healing himself. He's given a chance to speak to the comrades that he lost who died in Vietnam on that terrible day when he saved his best friend. He gets to tell his side of the story in the horrific tragedy that was that day. He gets to rail and scream at the army that put him in that position, that made him go through that horrible event for the first time, not feeling like a traitor for hating war and not fighting a fight within himself about the justice of it all. He gets a chance to have the loving support of his family so that he can cry out his pain and not feel ashamed for it. And over the coming weeks, while the camp fights for its freedom and prepares for the arrival of the Grey, he takes a journey through his shattered mind, collecting the scattered bits and pieces of his soul along the way as he faces his enemies and vanquishes them in his presence, while he talks to the dead that have gone beyond through the mediums that are there for that purpose. And he gets the loving support of friends and family that are there at the camp or represented. And he heals and becomes whole again. Comes to find out that he was in the army and he was like a major, a great tactician. And so within a month of coming to camp, he's placed in an army, the Defenders of Freedom, those who will never strike first, but will always strike last, overcoming all enemies. Because if you dare fight a Zionite, you fight yourself. But Harry's true days of fighting are over because Zion knows only one battle, and that battle is yet to be fought. By the time that last battle is waged, brought to the gates to the borders of Zion by the unjust nations that refuse to accept reality, and on that day, he and his defenders fight the last battle that's ever waged on this planet. And by using Hollywood tactics to defend his homeland, Harry and the heroes of Zion win our freedom once and for all. So may the Grey watch over you, guide you, protect you, and keep you from all harm. May they teach you right from wrong, and may you be worthy of them. May your thoughts, words, and deeds reflect truth, good, and light, the unicorn way. Find your joy and pursue it, and make that your life's work. Stay happy and high. If you use drugs, you have every right reason to. Believe me, I know. I wrote the books. My name is Zion. I love you way too much to say goodbye, so I'll say later now.